Welcome back to Brothers Fab and Adventure. Today we're going to start painting the new bumper.
Yeah, we got a bunch of different green and blue, pearl and flake here. So we're going to have some fun playing with these.
Yeah. Should be pretty cool.
We're going to do something cool, something different we haven't done before. We're going to get started now. So it's going to be similar to how we start usually, and then it's going to get different as we go here. So
just doing the last stir on the primer we just mixed up. It's been sitting about 15 minutes. It's 1-to-1 with acetone and Rustoleum primer here, and then half a cap of Japan dryer. And we'll mix this up a little bit more, and then we'll get it poured into our Amazon HVLP gun with a 2.0 tip with a pressure of about 30 to 35. Once it's all mixed, we'll pour it into our cup here.
with the strainer.
With the strainer on there.
Once it's all mixed and poured into the cup, and you've verified your pressure settings on your gun, go ahead and put the cup on the gun. And then you're going to want to check your settings for your material and your fan pattern. So we're going to do that now on a piece of cardboard. And it's probably going to be wildly off to start because, you know, it's actually not the worst ever. A little more fan. Because of the size of the bumper, we don't need the hugest fan. Just a tiny bit. I think we're pretty close. You also want to stay about 5 to 7 inches away from it. That's looking pretty decent. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking do it.
You're gonna do a run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
touch material?
Yeah. A little more material.
Yeah, that should be pretty good.
Looks pretty good there.
No, it's only primer. The angles of everything, it's like shooting back in my damn face.
Yeah.
It's awful. We got our 2 to 3 coats of primer sprayed on there, so it's time to move on to the black. We're using regular black Rustoleum. We're mixing a 431 with acetone and this hardener here, the Finish 1 hardener. And we're going to do about a cap full of Japan dryer. So I got 8 ounces of black in there. I got 6 ounces of acetone, and I'm going to put 2 ounces of hardener. Then I'll put my cap full of Japan dryer, get it mixed up real well, and let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes before I spray it. We're also going to be using a 1.4 tip on this.
You probably don't breathe that stuff in too much.
Yeah, and you don't want to breathe this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put my mask on and get it real well mixed up. And we'll check back in when we're ready to paint.
Get a little more on the top. Oh, you'll be able to do it later. Do some more.
We got the first light coat of black on there. I mixed up a little more for the next 2 rounds just to make sure I don't run out. Once that flashes off, which means it's not fully dry to the touch, it's a little sticky, but it doesn't come off on your glove. That means it's ready to spray the next coat. That's how we're going to do it for the clear coat as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and shoot the 2K clear, Speedo Coat 2K clear. I got it all mixed up. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. And it's had some time to mix or whatever, and so it's time to pour it in the gun and shoot it. I'm going to be using a 1.4 tip. This has all gone pretty well so far. I had one little mess up. I ran out of clear before I got my full first coat on. Then I was scrambling to get more mixed up, kind of scrambling to get the rest of it covered in a similar time frame, but I had to wait 15 minutes for it to activate. Some areas got a little too thick and I got some solvent pops, so I figured I'll show you what that looks like. All those bubbles right there, trapped solvents. Another little spot right in here, this little spot right here. This clear has been drying for a full day. It was pretty warm yesterday. I went ahead and wiped it off with some water just to make sure there's no dust on it, and I can go ahead and get to scuffing it up with some green Scotch-Brite pad, which is about 600 grit. I can give it another clean and start laying tape for the designs and the different colors, so I'm going to get to it. I got a little bucket of water here for the Scotch-Brite. I'm going to be doing what they call wet sanding. Maybe, I think some people call it color sanding at any rate. Since I've never done this before, usually I'm totally wet on wet. I'm going to start on the back side just to make sure I don't make any mistakes. And if I do, they should be hidden at least. So just going to try to keep this thing wet and cleaned out every once in a while. Pay attention for it not to get gummy and not to burn through the clear into the black. So basically the goal is you're trying to take the gloss off. You're not really trying to sand all the clear off. You just want some mechanical adhesion. And for clear, I believe you want 600 to 800 grit. I'm gonna kind of go in circles so that I've got scratches in all directions. As you can see, I got it all scuffed up. No more glossy surfaces on there. Now I'm gonna give it a final clean with this spray away glass cleaner and tack cloth, some sort of lint-free towel hopefully. And then I can start masking for the design and start shooting color. Got it all taped off. It's time to move on to the intercoat with the color in it. I think I'm gonna start with just one coat of intercoat to kind of seal the edges of the tape, so hopefully it doesn't bleed through. And then we'll move on to the color. So, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna do some different tones of blue on top here, and then these will all be green. Everything that's not taped will be the blue that the frame color is. For this part, we're using an intercoat to carry the metallic particles, the pearls and flakes. That is going to be our Speedo Coat Color Blender, SMR 3500, with their urethane grade reducer, SMR 870. It gets mixed at a 1:1. I already mixed 8 ounces of each into the cup here. While that's flashing, I'm going to go ahead and add the pearl to the rest of the intercoat. I just sprayed the intercoat on there to seal my tape down. Going to be the Seisso mica powder, darker blue. All right, so there's one, and I'm gonna go light on the second one. Up a little bit more material. I had maybe an ounce left. Another batch of the pearl so I can get a second coat of that. I'm also going to add some of this Didspade Royal Flush Blue Flake 0.008 as well, so that'll about match the frame. So I'm going to give that some time to mix together and activate, and let the paint that I just sprayed flash a little bit. Come back and throw the second coat on. All right, I made about another 8 ounces of intercoat, mixed it in the cup I was using before, so it's got a little residual of what I was using before. But now I added about 1.5 teaspoons of this holographic blue flake, random stuff I found on the internet on Amazon. So it's some huge flake, the biggest I've ever tried to spray before. And I've got this 3.0 Daddy Roth loose cannon gun, so hopefully it'll spray them. We're going to find out pretty soon here. For this holographic flake coat, I'm mostly going to focus on the hoop and maybe a little bit on the top of the bar below the hoop here. And the reason for that is I don't want them to land on any of the tape edges, because then I'm not going to get a clean pull on the tape without having to cut the flake in half or whatever. So
you gotta. Yeah.
I got this thing finished up last night. Figured out a little trick for guns in general when you get a clog. I was covering the material hole and hitting the trigger because I thought that that was a trick, but what I really figured out is you got to block the air off, and then it sends air back into the cup. All that material that was in the chute gets shot back into the cup. Once I figured that out, I finally got the flake to lay down good consistently. I would, unclog it like every time I would spray just to make sure it had good material coming out. I got about 4 coats of clear on that. It's sat overnight, and now it's time to pull the masking tape, but I figure I'll show you what this looks like real quick because it's popping in the sun real nice right now. What I understand the trick is with this sort of thing is to pull the tape as soon as you can. Makes it easier to pull the tape. Don't pull it too soon because then your paint won't stay where you put it if it's still kind of wet and runny. Also, I'm going to use a razor blade to cut the line on the edge of the tape so that when I peel it, it shouldn't mess anything outside of it that I just sprayed up. I did a little test area. Where I cut it, it seems like it should pull pretty good. Slow and steady. Got it all cut, so here we go. First tape pull. Kind of exciting, kind of a little scary. It's leaving a bunch of tape residue, it looks like. I'm going to have to get that cleaned off. I was like, man, is that the clear peeling? Thankfully, it's not. I can see the sanded clear down below it. Voila! Pretty satisfying. So, obviously, I got to clean that residue up.
Found a little trick here for the tape residue. You just use some more tape and it'll kind of peel right on up. There we go.
We're just using the old tape, by the way. A piece that the residue is missing, you just use it to stick it back up. Obviously going to be real careful around the edges, but that makes a lot shorter work of it than trying to rub it off by hand or something. We'll see, I'm about almost to the ones that are in the shade. Hopefully they'll be a little better, but at least we got this now, so I'm not too worried about it anymore. It's been a couple days. I went ahead and scuffed all the areas where the tape lines were, cleaned and remasked it, and then just did a final clean with a tack cloth window cleaner. Should be good to spray the next color, and I'm going to be doing these wings on the top here, and I picked 2 colors out for that. I went ahead and mixed myself some more of the color blender or intercoat. I went ahead and sprayed that on, so my tape lines shouldn't bleed through, hopefully. And now I'm going to go ahead and shoot my first different color, which is going to be this dark blue pearl. Nokon blue. I don't know, I think I'm going to put probably 1/8 of a teaspoon in there. Something along those lines. Just kind of going to have to feel it out as we go. I'm not sure. I might just mix 1 ounce at a time. We're going to see what happens. This is new to me, so. Looks like I don't have 1/8 of a teaspoon measuring spoons. I'm going to do 1/4 of a teaspoon, and I decided I'm going to just run with the 2 ounces I've got here. Should at least use 1 ounce of it. Shouldn't be too much of a waste if I don't use all 2 of them, but probably do 2 coats just to be safe too. We'll just start with 1 of those to see what it looks like, and probably add a second one to that, because that shouldn't be too much material. This will be the first time I spray any pearl through our mini paint gun here. I was hoping I'd get a little more control being able to spray it a little lighter, but I don't think that's the case with this one. We're not that far in and we're already having some learning experiences here. I had played around with some tape on this panel the other night, and I had even scuffed this whole area again and cleaned it with the window cleaner, but I apparently didn't get the residue all the way off of there, which is unfortunate because it's showing up here. Hopefully it won't be the end of the world and it'll cover, and if not, it'll just be a special effect. And I put it on a little wet over here, so hopefully my tape holds up and it doesn't bleed through, because I'm not sure that I waited full amount of time I needed to before I sprayed the color after that initial just clear intercoat layer. We're gonna see what happens, learning as we go. My next design all masked out on this panel and the other one, and I'm running out of daylight, so it's time to go. Went ahead and sprayed some intercoat on the tape and then mixed up some of this dark ocean blue here. Should be pretty nice. Got my first coat on there. Got to do 1 or 2 more. This is sat overnight. About an hour after I shot it, I was a little anxious and tried peeling some of the tape just to see what would happen. It worked out just fine, but it was a little nerve-wracking, but also really satisfying. And now it's time to pull the rest of the tape before the sun gets hot and hits it, I think. We'll see what happens. But yeah, figured I'd show you the peeling because it's kind of satisfying. Alright, I got some crazy neon green custom paint mixed up here using a combination of KP Pigments, Radioactive Green, and Eye Candy's Green Tea and UFO Green. So I'm going to use this kind of to try some shading / highlighting. In the spirit of doing something new and learning, I'm going to be airbrushing for the first time. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it'll go well. All right, I got all that shading, highlighting done. It was a little bit of a struggle, but it worked out eventually. Then I went ahead and put 2 coats of intercoat on top of it all to lock it in. And I've changed my masking now, so I'm gonna be shooting the front of the bumper here. And I'm gonna be using a different color green. It's gonna be this Kabosu from Eye Candy. It's kind of a emerald. It's got a little bit of yellowish green into it. And then, by the way, this is that radioactive green. This is the green tea, and this is the UFO green. That's what I used to make that color I shot earlier, which basically looks like this. I got this green all mixed up, and I sprayed some intercoat on the tape edges there. In a minute here, I'm going to put this in the gun and go ahead and start shooting it. That was pretty lackluster, so I went ahead and added another 1/4 teaspoon of that same color, and then about 1/8 teaspoon of the UFO to really kind of brighten the green up. It kind of has a yellowish tinge to it too, so that was to try to counter effect that.
Be hard for you guys to see, but you can kind of see some green in it.
I got it a little thick there.
It's taken 3 coats for it just to show up as much as it is, which looks like more than I was seeing before on the camera here, but I went ahead and added some more bowl to this cup to make sure it shows up on the 4th and however many final coats it takes. Here we go.
All right, finally getting somewhere. Only taken about 6 coats so far, but I think it's gonna look pretty good. Project has been a lot. I probably got a little over ambitious with my plans. It was a lot harder than I expected. I had issues with the airbrush yesterday because that was the first time using it. Probably should have practiced beforehand. I had issues getting the green on yesterday. Might have been that I had a little too light on my pearls. Might have also been because this is the first time I've ever sprayed pearls through my mini gun, which has a small, a 1.0 tip. Also, I noticed at the end of it that one of my knobs at the bottom that controls the air pressure had got tweaked, and so I was getting very little air pressure coming out of the gun after my regulator gauge. Those were some problems that I ran into. I figured I'd pass along to you, maybe save you some grief. And this morning, I was pretty burnt out last night. I just wanted to be done with it, and I still got 3 colors to do. And then I was going to do stenciling and other stuff on top of it, which I'll probably still plan to do, some shading, all that. But the scope of this, I got to get this bumper back on the vehicle sooner than later here because we got a trip coming up. I'm motivated. I masked this up this morning. I wiped it down with spray away glass cleaner, and then I decided to give it a wax and grease remover wipe before I masked it all up. The problem with that is that when I did the wax and grease remover, I put it on pretty wet on the rag, wiped it all down real good, but then didn't wipe it dry afterwards, and there was a bunch of that solvent sitting on top that had soaked into the paint. Now the paint is sticky, tape won't stick to it, so I can't mask. There's no way I'm painting now. It's been probably close to 2 hours now. You can see it looks like glossy compared to like what's scuffed up on the end here. That's not glossy. I didn't wipe that down, but this was wiped down. Now I just gotta wait for it to dry. Hopefully it won't take too long, but I think I'm out at least a day, and then I got snow coming in, and it's pretty windy today, so I probably shouldn't be painting anyway, but hopefully that'll make it dry faster. Talked to the person at Speedo Coat, and they said it just needs to dry, so get the airflow, and it's a windy day, so that should help, and sunny. Just another mistake I made that hopefully I can save you guys the headache from that, because I'm definitely kind of sweating it now. Just wanted to give a little update on the paint situation here. It's been like 5 days since I made my mistake with the wax and grease remover, and it's still pretty sticky. You can see it's like leaving a fingerprint in there. Basically, not long after that, I thought I probably destroyed the paint and I was going to have to potentially strip it down the road because it may never dry. I decided to try something because I'm hopeful that I can salvage it still, basically. And I thought I had heard that, you know, when you scuff paint, it opens the surface up and kind of allows some of the inner layers to gas off some more. And I figured if there's any of that wax and grease remover trapped in here, maybe if I scuff the gummy part off the top, it's got some open scratches and it can gas off a little bit. Maybe that'll fix the problem. I went ahead and gave it a shot on this side. I cleaned it up because it was covered in dirt and bugs because it's been sticky for 5 days. So yeah, I cleaned it with just some mild soapy water. Then I went ahead and scuffed it with some green Scotch-Brite. Doesn't seem sticky anymore. I think that that's going to have saved it and I can continue on. Guess we're going to see what happens here in a little bit. But figure that might be useful for somebody else. Really, the most useful thing is don't do what I did. Don't put that wax and grease remover on there wet and leave it sitting on there. Go light with it. Wipe it off immediately. But if you do screw up like I did, maybe if you're patient, you wait for it to dry as much as possible. Scuff the top. Make sure it's totally dry again. And then you can continue on. Back to painting again. I got about an ounce of intercoat mixed up with about an 1/8 teaspoon of this macaw blue. Should be a blue-green, it says. Yeah, I sprayed 2 coats of intercoat after I masked it, so my line should be locked in, and I'm about ready to spray this blue.
Under the blue. And take a couple layers again, I think. Yep.
Got 3 coats of that macaw blue-green on here, and now I'm going to spray another color on the front. I got this next panel all masked off and 2 coats of intercoat to lock my tape lines in. Then I got an ounce of this emerald green mixed up. Probably should have showed you guys beforehand, but that's how it goes sometimes. We'll see how it goes on here. Should look pretty nice. Onto the third coat, I added a little bit of Didspade lime green 0.004 flake to this. So might change it a little bit, but I think it's just going to accent it a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, but I think it is going to be a nice little accent.
All masked up again, and this time I'm going to shoot some forest green on these outer ends here. If that's not quite as dark as what I'm going for, I might add a little dark ocean green to it as well. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to start with a coat of intercoat to lock my lines in. 1 ounce of intercoat with a ½ teaspoon of forest green. After the first coat. I ahead and got this all unmasked. I got basically 5 coats of that forest green on this outer panel here. When I was finishing up, I still had some paint left over and went a little heavy-handed, so I had a couple little problems. It's what it is. It's not that big of a deal. I just need to remind myself to be more patient if I need to put the extra paint on, and or not worry about having some leftover paint, because it's probably like a couple dollars I'm trying to save. And I had really nice even coverage before I went heavy with it, but let me show you what I'm talking about. Kind of sagged a little bit on that top edge, and it looks like it has its own natural shading, I guess you would say. Other than that, this one's pretty even, pretty good clean tape edges, not too much bleed through or anything. On this side, it's a pretty similar situation. Looks like some shading up top because the material sagged, and I had a run that happened here. I'm gonna go ahead and clean it off really well, and then I'm gonna remask it because all the stuff that is already clear coated, I don't need to clear coat it again right at the moment. I'm just gonna mask the stuff I don't need to clear, and I'm gonna get some clear on all these panels that are not clear coated yet. So that's the next step. Couple things worth noting. When I did the masking on the bottom side, I just put the tape on like normal because you're not going to see it very much, and I wasn't worried about it, but it does show a line there where I sprayed the extra clear on top of this, but not on this. And I did some things a little differently up here, and you can tell there's not much of a line, but there is a little bit of dry spray. And what I did there is I folded the tape over on itself about 1/4 inch, so there was a flap on this leading edge where the paint was getting sprayed. And what that does is it feathers it so that you have less of a tape line there. Still got a little bit of one, but basically this would cut and buff right out, no problem, whereas that would take a little bit more work. Also about tape, there's some spots like this where when I cut the tape lines, I got a little bit of a gouge and pulled some of the base below it, which subsequently got covered up by another color, fortunately, but that's still visible. Hopefully when I go back to do the shading, that will be able to be covered up. Otherwise, pretty clean tape lines. I stopped cutting them because I didn't want to risk that sort of thing. There was probably at least a couple other places where I had it. One right there, let's see, maybe right there. So I kind of did the feathered tape trick here, and it worked fairly well on this edge, but not so well there. I guess the flap was pretty close. That's one thing you got to pay attention to. I got 3 coats of clear on this, and I think I'm going to have to call that done for right now. There's a bunch more that I wanted to do, like play with stencils, add shadowing to the panels, and I have some green and blue gold leaf, as well as some wild green. It's like a neon green flake and a holographic green flake that I want to add to this as well. I'm out of time, and this has got to go back on the vehicle for now, and I'm gonna have to come back to this later. Hopefully you guys learned something from this, and if you're experienced with this sort of thing, drop me some comments about how I could improve, and you know, what might make my life a little easier for moving forward on this when I go to finish the more difficult parts of it. I decided I was gonna ditch the mini HVLP gun midway through this job because it was just giving me hard times. Switched to my 1.4 tip HVLP and everything went pretty smooth after that. Please like, share, and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. Until next time, on Brothers Fab and Adventure.